I think that inbox management is one of the hardest tasks as a VA. And that's because each inbox is as unique as each client themselves. Everybody has a different workflow, has a different expectation when it comes to email. And unless your client is completely hands off and lets you take their inbox over for free reign, it can be incredibly challenging to create a system that works for you both. Now, having said all that, there are ways that you can help make this particular task easier. First and foremost, you must begin by setting expectations for your client and for yourself. To do that, I want you to start by taking a look at their inbox and assess things like, how does their inbox look? Do they read all their incoming emails, or do they have 5,000 unread messages? Do they use labels or folders? Do they have a lot of subscription emails or junk mail? I want you to start by noting specific problem areas or things that you know that you can improve upon. Your next step is to hop on a call with your client to discuss those initial thoughts, and also, of course, to get their feedback. Now, I've compiled a Google Doc for you and a checklist, so make sure that you download both resources, because this is a field guide to help you fact gather. You're going to ask them where they struggle, what the breakdown is, how the system is failing them. So let's go ahead and jump into my screen and start tackling some inboxes. All right, so I've got my very own, very messy inbox. We're going to help clean this up. After you've already hopped on a call with your client and you've discussed ways that they can be improved upon, the things that your clients are looking for, what they're missing out on, how the system is failing for them, the first thing you need to do is actually get access to their inbox. Now, clients can certainly give you their password, but I have other clients who also choose to make me a delegate, and there is a slight difference between the two. Difference is, if you have full access to your client's email via password, you can do certain things, like you could change their Gmail password on them. That would be, of course, a horrible practical joke, and we would never do that. In any case, it's completely up to your client what they want to do for you, but I do want to show you how they could make you a delegate just in case they ask. So let's pretend that this client W is client inbox, and they've opted to make you a delegate. The first thing that they will need to do is come up to settings. We're going to see all settings and come over to accounts and import. And if they scroll down, they'll see this grant access to your account. All we're going to do is add another account, and they're going to enter your email address here. Here's what it looks like on the other end. So when your client gives you delegated access, this is the message that you're going to see. When it's time to access your client's inbox, you'll simply click up on this logo in the upper right-hand corner and you'll see the inbox here. Simply click and the inbox will open for you. All right, so that's out of the way. Now that you've been given access, we can start eliminating. That is step one for inbox management. We are going to eliminate. So one of the questions you're going to ask your client is, can I eliminate emails after a certain date, for example? As a general rule of thumb, I like to say if your client hasn't accessed emails in the previous 6 months, everything from that point forward can get deleted. Chances are they've already been handled, or they're never going to look at these old emails anyway. So what we can do is select all, and we're going to start mass deleting. And we're deleting, and we're still deleting. Now, as you're going through this, if your client really hates to delete things or feels a little overwhelmed, you can, of course, archive. Archive is a little different than deletion. It doesn't quite send the emails to trash directly. It actually sends archived emails into this all mail folder, so that if they did need to, for some reason, access something from back in the day, they could access this under the all mail heading. But I think deleting emails is just fine. We've already gone from 175 emails to 150. Already we're working with something that's a little more manageable, and we don't have to go back and worry about emails that are older than 6 months. Oh, I suppose I should have actually included. If you look under a client's different tabs, social, promotions, you might find that they're subscribed to certain newsletters. You can actually just mass delete all these things, or you can actually go through and ask them if they'd like to unsubscribe. So when you click on a mailer, you can actually just go ahead and unsubscribe, making it quite easy for your client to start removing some of that clutter. We'll move this to spam. So that is definitely something that you can do for them as well. Step 2 is an archive. So it's a little bit related to step one, I know. But step two is to start archiving messages that they've either already responded to or you think maybe are important, but it's just clogging up the inbox. So for the sake of this argument, I'm going to pretend that everything from January is needed. So say your client still needs to access this info, but it doesn't necessarily need to sit in their inbox. What we're going to do is simply archive the message. As I mentioned, the archive goes into this all mail heading so that if they did need to look something up, they could either go into this all mail folder. If they know any of the terms that they're looking for or even the dates, could say January emails, that will pull up the emails that we have just archived. Step 3 in our process is to start creating different subfolders for them. Now at this point, hopefully you've been in your client's inbox long enough that you're starting to get a sense for what kind of things they are dealing with on a regular basis. Common categories for folders, I find, tend to be travel, receipts and invoices, personal, pets, etc. Work, certainly. So I'm going to show you how to create a folder. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that you've noticed that your client travels often and that their inbox is clogged with a lot of travel notifications. We are going to create a folder for them so that we can start archiving those messages appropriately. Under the More heading, I actually want you to scroll down and create a new label. So we've called this business travel. So here on the side, there we go. Once you create a label or new folder, you'll see it listed on the side here. There's no limitation for how many folders you can create. Pets, just want to show you what that looks like. You can create and they will all be listed here on the left-hand side. For the sake of this inbox, let's say that these are all travel-related emails. There are several different ways that you can immediately put these into a folder. You can check and highlight the emails and simply click and drag so that you're moving the 5 conversations over to the business travel label, or you can come over to this move to on the top screen and move to business travel. So 2 different ways we can do that. Totally your preference. I think dragging is just as easy. As you can see here, just with a few minor practices, we're already down from 175 to 33 emails in the inbox. So we're making some good headway. Now at this point, you can start archiving and moving emails into their respective folders. Fun, right? Don't be afraid to tell your clients that starting on inbox management is a marathon and not a sprint. Slow and steady wins every single time. What you're left with is really just emails now. The bulk of important work emails without the additional clutter of newsletters and junk mail. At this point, it might be a good idea to get on another call with your client. If they're okay with the system that you've already created, if they're happy with the things that you've archived, the things that you've deleted for them, great. But there are still more steps that we can do to make this inbox a little more manageable. Step number 4 is creating labels and priority systems. Now, labels are a little different than the folders that we created because labels help clients identify the content of the email right from their inbox. Some labels that you might consider creating for your clients include urgent. These are things that need their attention. So if you log on to their computer in the morning, their inbox, and you realize that there's something that is urgently needed, you can mark something as urgent so that when they log on in the morning, they'll see right off the bat that their attention is needed. Other labels might include to do, VA to do. Maybe you want to label something for yourself if you've noticed that there's a task that they should be delegating to you. FYI, no reply needed, receipts, and travel. Let's go ahead and take a look at creating labels. When you're creating a label, you're going to notice something interesting. And it is that the labels will also generate over here to what I referred to as the folders. Labels and folders are actually quite similar. They differ in very small, minute, but important ways. So let's pretend for the sake of this argument that Caleb emails client W all the time for work-related stuff. So I'm just going to quickly highlight a few of these Caleb emails, and I'm going to create a label. This is next to the move to. So look for the label tab and we'll click create. And I want to create a new one, or I can actually just type one in here. I'm going to label this to do. So your client works with Caleb. We're going to create a new label. Now you will notice that there's a new folder over here. You could treat this like a folder and you could simply drag and drop these conversations into the to-do. But the reason that I like labels is because they do differ a little bit, and that you'll see a label in the inbox as well. So when your client logs on in the morning, they'll see that Caleb has sent them a ton of to-dos. So do take the time to label certain emails as well. And I think you'll figure out a nice system that works with your client. Part of your job is to really figure out what works and what doesn't. Are they visual? Do they like to log? By default, Gmail includes 1 gold star. The theory here is that you can indicate things that are important to you by simply starring them. I find that by clicking all stars, meaning we have access to all these different colors and these symbols, I find that it helps make organization a little bit easier. So I want you to go ahead, save those changes. And what we can do is also color code certain things. Now, color coding is going to be very specific to you and your client. Let's say, for example, that certain to-dos are more urgent than others. Rather than adding several labels, which you certainly can do, by the way, and I want you to show you what that looks like. So let's say out of all these to-dos, you can show your client pretty easily when they log on that out of all Caleb's emails for things that they have to do, this one is the most urgent. You can also star it. The reason that I like to have these colors is because The reason that I like to include these colors is because you could come up with a system for your client that indicates things like red is urgent, yellow is an FYI, blue is personal news. So you guys come up with a system together, You can even click through. And by the way, the more you click through, the more it rotates through the system. If you do set up a label that's VA to do, let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to create a new folder, VA to do. So these are things that you are going to do for your client. That could also be a check mark. I could also label it VA to do so that when your client is scrolling through their inbox, they'll see, all right, here's something that my VA is going to take care of for me. It's a green check. It's done. Now, last but not least, if your client is perpetually struggling with their inbox, then I find that it helps to suggest email alternatives. I had a client who, even after managing her inbox, struggled to follow the rules and filter systems that we had agreed upon. And since email was a constant struggle, I actually researched several email alternatives, and I strongly suggested that she invested in a program. She ended up purchasing Superhuman and was incredibly thankful for the recommendation. Superhuman is another system that takes care of some of the email and inbox management for busy people. Other apps that are very similar include Front App or SaneBox. These kind of tools, something like Superhuman, do cost, and they are fairly costly. But as a VA, it is your role to simplify your client's life, and sometimes simplifying means removing the two of you from the equation. I've also included a list of email services that promise to help make inbox management easier, like Superhuman or SaneBox. So if your client is looking for alternatives, you can be sure to suggest some of those as well.